everybody. Thank you for joining us. Our studio, freezing. It's freezing cold.
Overstated.
Not overstated, guy.
I
have Raynaud's, as you know, in my hands and my feet, which means if I get cold, these guys, they don't work.
Yeah.
So what am I going to be doing?
They're like little flippers on you right now.
I'm going to be like, my friend Terry, she gave me heated gloves for Christmas last year.
Yeah.
I might have to start wearing those on set.
Understood. Yeah.
Or, here's an idea.
Yeah.
It's a new one.
Yeah.
It's called Put the Heat On.
Oh.
I live with a guy that's like, nope, we're not putting that heat on until like the first snow or maybe the second snow or the third snow.
Yeah.
We're fine. Put a coat on. That's the guy I live with.
No, because that's how I grew up when I was a kid. We didn't turn the heat on ever.
Either did I.
My mom was like, listen, either
please.
throw a log in the wood stove or get over it.
Okay, we don't have a wood stove. For starters, number one.
No, we don't.
I grew up hard scrabble mom too. Are you really going to have a hard scrabble contest between our mothers? My mom was like,
your mom was harder scrabble than mine.
Not only did we put wood on the fire, we had to go cut our own wood to put on the fire. We've had that conversation before.
You grew up in Colorado, which, believe me, Vermont's a lot colder than Colorado. Let me just say
please.
that.
I'm just saying.
Don't please me.
Here's the best part. The best part is we can actually afford a little bit of heat. I'm just saying, I'm not asking to cook it in here.
I'll check the budget.
Can I get it to like 65 in here? That'd be great.
65?
6 or 7?
Okay,
just kidding. Oh, sorry. I had to do it. Sorry.
Please don't.
Please don't. Okay, real quick, a quick appeal to viewers really fast. A personal favor I'm asking. If you happen to have been at our election night party, it was at the Hotel Albuquerque on November 8th of 2022. There was the governor's race. It was election night. And you happen to have recorded any part of Mark's concession speech, would you reach out to me at info@nodoubtaboutitpodcast.com? That's again, info@nodoubtaboutitpodcast.com. I am working on a little video project, and I really would love to talk to you if you happen to have any video clips that you personally took. Not news clips. I'm not looking for those. I'm looking for individual people that were there. A lot of people had their cameras out that night, and I'm putting a project together. So if you were there and you took any portion of Mark speaking that night, please reach out to me and let me know. Okay, thanks so much. Okay, now tell us what's on the show today.
Okay, well, we've got an interesting show. Number one, we're going to go back to the Albuquerque mayor's debate for one quick second because one of the candidates told the other candidate what he said wasn't true and that Channel 7 should fact check it. And Channel 7 said, okay, so they fact checked it. One of the candidates is completely wrong and was exposed for that. So we'll get to what's going on with that. Number two, in the state of New Mexico, we have part of the judiciary, and there are some great judges in the state, and there are some who are devastating to this state. We all know this. We see people get turned out on the street constantly. It affects everybody of all stripes. And what we're seeing right now is this is all kind of coming around with the homeless decision. And it's going to be something that if you're watching outside the state of New Mexico, it's worth talking about too, because it's likely to affect you, especially if you live in a blue state, which is, do people have the right to sleep on the streets? Do they? The Supreme Court said, no, they don't. And you have someone in the state of New Mexico who's like, wait a minute, maybe they do. And it's a judge. So we're going to get into that. It was in the Journal on Wednesday, and we'll touch on that particular issue as well. We're also going to talk about the government shutdown, which is now reaching epic levels, 22 days.
And counting.
We're going to check in with one Democratic senator who's putting Americans first, another Democratic senator from this state who says, wait a minute, I want this thing to keep going for whatever reason. So we'll get into details on that. Excuse me. There is a new ICE hotline out there that is being set up so that you can know where ICE is going to be nationwide. Okay.
Unreal.
We're going to pair that with the fact that, are we seeing more attacks on ICE? Are we seeing more violence toward ICE? And will this make it worse? Well, I think you probably know the answer, and we'll give it to you as well. We're also going to talk about what's going on politically, not only with the shutdown here, but we're also going to talk about what's going on here with presidents taking the reins away from Congress and deciding that they're going to basically sign everything through executive order. You're seeing a lot of it with Trump. Okay, you saw a lot of it with Biden, a ton of it with Obama. Okay, and so why are they doing this? And we actually have the numbers to show why they're doing it in some cases and why it's probably not great for the country, no matter what side you're on, that you want more of this to go through Congress, because those are your elected representatives, and they're going to be closer to the people necessarily than just signing things on an executive order. And then there is a candidate for Senate in Texas who put out a 1-minute ad, which I am loving. I mean, it is so ridiculous that we have to talk about it, and it's actually comical what this ad is, and it's ridiculous as well. And of course, we'll touch on that.
Okay, so we're going to start, though, talking a little bit. I mean, we're going back to this mayor's debate because something sparked at the mayor's debate that has now led to another story.
Yes. So Alex Ubaez went in. He's running to the left of Tim Keller in the
Which is hard to
Albuquerque
believe.
mayoral election. Like, it is very hard to believe, but he's doing it. And so Ubaez said during the debate, hey, I got a tour of the West Side homeless shelter, because homelessness in Albuquerque is a massive issue, as it is for many places across the country. It's off the charts bad. And so Ubaez went to do a tour. He got a tour. Well, he says that the head of that facility was fired for giving him a tour. Tim Keller stands up and says, that's not true. That's not true. Channel 7, you should investigate. So Channel 7 investigated. Well, let's check in on the story that Channel 7 did on this investigation, and then we'll find out who's telling the truth and who's not, and what the result was.
That shows that you haven't been there and you don't know that much about it.
You know I've been to the West Side shelter. You know because I set it up to the director who you fired for letting me take a tour.
She's not the director, and I didn't fire her.
She is no longer the director. That is correct.
Fact check. Channel 7 later.
So we are, and we learned that someone was fired for giving Ubaez a tour, although Keller said he was not involved with that. The person terminated was not the homeless shelter director. Instead, she was the senior director and oversaw multiple facilities, including Gateway West.
The exchange that we had actually, I think, goes to really the fundamental issues of this campaign. We're talking about homelessness.
The shelter is managed by a nonprofit, Chicanos por la Causa, which took over management of it in 2024, following reports of poor conditions. They have a contract with the city, but it's the city that owns the shelter.
Tim said I'd never been to the West Side shelter, which was surprising to me because I knew that he knew that I had been there.
Ubaez said he was asked by a homeless advocate if he wanted a tour of the facility. He said he also knew someone who worked at the shelter who supported his campaign.
So after the tour, I learned that the person who arranged the tour was dismissed from the agency who runs the Gateway system.
We obtained this document that was delivered to the employee. It's from the nonprofit, informing her that she was being terminated for providing, quote, an unauthorized tour of their premises to the mayoral candidate that she supports without notifying the leadership team.
I think citizens have a right to see how their public facilities are being used, their public dollars are being used.
The document goes on to state that, quote, due to the seriousness and possible implications of this incident may cause, such as jeopardizing funding, termination of employment was warranted.
Hold on. Okay.
We reached out
jeopardizing funding. What does that mean? That would mean the city comes back and says, we're pulling your money because you gave him a tour.
Which is ridiculous.
This is ridiculous. So we're not going to go through the rest of the story. I mean, the rest of the story basically says that, hey, look, and I want to say this first off about Ubaez. We've hit him a few times to say, what's going on here? He needs to run a more full-throated campaign. I will say in his defense, this is the issue for him. Like, this is his big issue. This is really what he cares about. Okay, and to his credit, he has pushed very hard. Now, I think his approach would lead to an explosion of homelessness in the city and be devastating, okay? But he's a true believer who stands up for what he thinks, and he has every right to get a tour. He has every right. And I think what happens is you get these ham-fisted politicians who have been in power for so long, they think that they don't have to give a tour. They don't have to do anything.
Well, if the rest of the story, they were talking about the fact that, it was a security issue or showing, keep protection of the people that are there and things of that nature. And I'm like, he wasn't going in there with cameras. It's one thing if you're like a media member who wants to go in and see the facilities. Yep. That to me makes more sense as somebody who's been on PR for a long time. And I would take requests for filming things of my clients' brands. There are certain circumstances where you're like, yeah, unfortunately, you cannot come in here and film this right now. That makes sense, but he's just trying to get a tour without cameras or filming people with him. That makes very little sense to me.
And the fact that Keller stands up and says, yeah, let's investigate this. And then he's completely wrong.
Yeah, he looks like a tool.
It's crazy, right? So this election's coming down to the wire. I think this gets down to this fact of things are not working the way they're happening right now. And so when you have mayoral candidates, no matter where they're from on the political spectrum, and they want to dig into what's going on to be able to make comments and talk about these things, and you're exactly right, not necessarily filming in there, I can understand where that would be an issue.
Yeah.
Clearly, I haven't seen a thing that Ubaez has put out a video in there showing all sorts of things. Now, it could be wrong. Maybe he did, but I don't think he did.
Yeah.
And so I just think this is a great example when you have arrogance in leadership who basically says, no, you don't get to look at this. Well, you know what? We're all suffering under this, including the people on the streets. So how about we have an open discussion about this and a real exchange of ideas. And so this was just a really good example of what's happening in this race, where I think this is going to come down to, as we've said before, Darren White and Tim Keller in a runoff. We'll see. I don't think Ubias is going to be in the runoff. I don't think he's distinguished himself enough apart from Keller. The whole approach of I'll do Keller better is not a way to run a campaign.
Yeah, no.
Okay. It just doesn't work. But I will say, I think that he is somebody who genuinely does care about the issue. And I think wanted to get more information so he could try to, in his campaign, address it. And of course, now you see what happens in those debates. So that's one of the interesting things that can happen in these debates. Okay. Usually there's not like a gotcha line or something that changes everything. All right. But there are things that leak out over time that can end up pushing the electorate a little bit. I don't think it's going to push much in regard to Ubias necessarily getting a ton more votes, but we'll see. I don't think the solution to homelessness is making sure that we, add more homelessness, because I think that's what's going to happen with what he's suggesting.
Yeah. Well, and just to keep a quick reminder, early voting is already happening 10 to 7 at most early voting locations, Monday through Saturday. So make sure you get out there and cast your vote. And again, we're going to tell you, Courtney Jackson for school board. We want to make sure we did not have her on.
If you live in her district.
If you lived in her district. Yeah, absolutely. So, and Renee Grout and Dan Lewis are up on the ballots as well for city council. Yeah, in their districts. And of course, we support both of those guys as well on city council. Great. So if you happen to get those ballots, that's what we would tell you to vote for, as well as Darren White. So, okay, let's move on then, because this homelessness issue is obviously now it's taking on a different legal issue.
Right. And so this is Wednesday in the Albuquerque Journal. Now, this story's a little bit convoluted here, so I'll try to explain it the best I can. And then we're going to pull some quotes for you so you can sort of understand what's happening here. But it says the New Mexico Supreme Court won't reverse homeless ruling. So what homeless ruling are they talking about? Well, there is a judge in Albuquerque who stood up and basically said, look, there's a case in front of him. And he basically said, I think it's possible that removing people from the streets, not allowing people to camp on the street, could be against the Eighth Amendment, the Eighth Amendment to the Constitution. Okay? Cruel and unusual punishment is what he's saying.
Goodness gracious.
Okay? So now, this is one of those issues. Now, the reason I wanted to bring this issue up is because this is one of those issues that I think ends up affecting everybody, and it is something when you have a rogue judge, it can end up being a huge issue. We always ask ourselves, who in the world would turn these criminals back out on the street? Whoever, I'm not talking about the homelessness thing. I'm just talking about somebody who commits a crime, and then they get turned back out on the street. You say, who would possibly do that? Well, we have some judges who support chaos for whatever reason. And so what ended up happening was the city of Albuquerque, heck, Sam Bregman comes out and says, wait a minute, we need to be able to take people off the street in conjunction with what the U.S. Supreme Court said and get them off the street. They don't have a right to sleep on the street. And this judge says, well, they might. So this judge still has to hear the case. He hasn't heard the case yet, but at this point, he's starting to give indications. Hey, I may be end up saying here that these people do have a right to sleep on the street, and so that was brought up to the New Mexico Supreme Court, and basically the city of Albuquerque says, bounce this guy's decision. It's ridiculous. It's very clear people don't have a right to sleep on a sidewalk day in and day out. And the New Mexico Supreme Court, again, a very, very far left court, said, we're not touching it. We're going to leave it. We're going to leave it. So therefore, this case just keeps on going. So we'll see. It's going to be heard in 2026. So that's the basic background. I want to explain that a bit because some of these things that Christy's about to read are a little difficult to follow unless you know the basics on this. But here's where we sit here. So now let's talk the background and what the story
right. And when we say Allison, that is the judge here. So that's what we're talking about. It's Judge Joshua Allison.
Yes,
okay?
Joshua Allison is the judge. That's right.
Okay. So it says the ruling that spurred the city's emergency request to the Supreme Court was Allison's decision earlier this year to permit attorneys for the unhoused to argue at a future trial that the city's policy violates the Eighth Amendment prohibition against cruel and unusual punishment when the homeless person has no place else to stay. The plaintiffs and thousands of other people exist outdoors with their belongings on public property in Albuquerque because they have no means to pay for housing, and the city of Albuquerque lacks adequate, sufficient shelter, stated the plaintiffs' response to the Supreme Court. They go on. It says, quote, the city orders people to move from place to place, threatening to destroy their life-sustaining belongings, wheelchairs, tents, blankets, food, water, and clothing without a warrant or adequate notice of a pre- or post-deprivation hearing or an opportunity to reclaim what is theirs, the response stated. The city of Albuquerque asked the Supreme Court to reverse Judge Allison's ruling, in which he denied the city's motion to dismiss the cruel and unusual punishment claim from the lawsuit. Now, the city goes on again and says, if allowed to stand, the district court's decision will leave the city of Albuquerque and cities and towns throughout New Mexico with no means to prevent the proliferation of encampments within their borders. Because the district court's opinion is egregiously flawed and will result in significant and immediate harm, the city asks this court to exercise its power to take superintending control over this matter. That was the city's request, by the way. Bernalillo County District Attorney Sam Bregman's office filed a response supporting the city of Albuquerque, as did the city of Rio Rancho.
Okay. So that gives you an idea. And then just one other little quote from this that I want you to read, because this kind of ties things back into what's going on nationally.
They contended Allison erred last March in agreeing with the lawyers for the unhoused that a 2024 U.S. Supreme Court ruling, which is Grant's Pass, Oregon versus Johnson, was flawed in concluding that local governments could enforce use of space ordinances against the unhoused without violating their Eighth Amendment cruel and unusual punishment protections. That ruling was lauded by cities and other municipalities around the country. But Allison found that New Mexico's state constitution provides for greater protection against cruel and unusual punishment, claims that was considered by the U.S. Supreme Court.
Okay, this is what we mean by judges who step in and sow chaos. I mean, this is a great example. If this is allowed to go through, and I think eventually it won't be, okay? But still,
but this is not going to go to court till 2026.
Right.
So until now and then, like, what happens?
Well, I think that's the real question. And you're going to see more and more issues of these things and more lawsuits. Like, you have groups like the ACLU who come in and they basically, their whole goal is to create chaos so that people sleep on the streets. Look, this is very simple. You're not helping the unhoused by allowing them to sleep on the street. You're not, because that lifestyle ends one way. It's a progressive disease that ends in death. That's how it works, okay? And they don't want help in a lot of cases, but we have to provide them help. We have to give them the help that they need, and they can't sleep on the streets. If you allow them to sleep on the streets and Judge Allison gets his way, or it looks like maybe he's leaning that way, we'll see, but if he gets his way, you're going to have chaos. You're going to have chaos, and you're going to have unlivable streets, and you're going to have people leave the city in even higher numbers than we already have. It's devastating. Well, it's absolutely devastating.
It's so crazy. Just last night, we were at a volleyball game for our daughters, and I was talking to one of the fathers who was trying to get there, and he had to reroute because he was just trying to go down First and I-40 where that meets up. He said that the homelessness had taken over the street. Like, they were in the street at that area where they had to he had to be rerouted because he couldn't even get around them. Like, it's this massive takeover of whatever they want to do, drugs, have sex. We talked about that in the last episode. Defecate, whatever they feel like doing around other businesses, whether there's children near those businesses or in those businesses, it doesn't matter. So you've got drug paraphernalia, you have condoms, you have a ton of stuff that's just you have human waste. It's disgusting. And so
you're destroying the way of life in your city. The quality of life goes away. We've watched it deteriorate. And so when you have judges who want to keep that going, it affects everybody. And that's why it matters. And that's why accountability matters. The New Mexico Supreme Court, it's one party ruled. Every single position is all Democrats. Now, you got some people there who just will not stand up for simple rule of law, and it affects everybody. So that's why this is such a devastating decision when things like this start to happen, and you wonder, how could this happen in this city? How could this happen in this state? Why are so many people who are violent out on the streets? Why are there so many people on every street corner that may not be violent, but they can't sleep there? You can't do that. You've watched every corner of Albuquerque turn into an area where everyone's begging for money on every corner. And it's decisions like this that make living in this city nearly impossible. And you'll drum everybody out. It will work. Yeah. I promise. Yeah. You'll be successful in getting everybody out of this city if you keep doing this. And again, if we don't step up on both sides of the aisle and say, We can't have this.
And again,
Then
the
you have
other
a
thing
huge
that drives
problem.
me crazy about this whole situation is how much money that the city has actually already collected and the state has already collected to help homelessness.
I shared this
and
with the mayor.
to
Over the-
make sure that the homeless shelters and the Gateway Center are well funded.
Right.
And some of those places are empty. They have empty beds. I mean, I'm not saying that they're always empty, but I have friends that volunteer at those locations and come back to me and say, listen, they have plenty of beds. But that's just not the option. That's not where some people want to go. And so again, it's like, how much more money are we going to funnel at this and not actually just protect the laws and the citizens that live here
Right.
and the taxpayers that are paying for those facilities?
No, and you have to treat people with respect. But at the same time, we should create a party. It's like, the CSP, the Common Sense Party. Because it's just, it doesn't, very common sense. If you allow people to sleep on the streets, they will. They don't want the treatment in many cases. But you have to get them into treatment. You don't have a choice. It's not that you don't care about them or that they don't have value as human beings. They do. In God's eyes, they're as valuable as anybody else. And I believe that too. But we got to get them the help. And they can't sleep on the street. It's just the rules. That's the way the rules go. Kids can't have candy bars for breakfast. It's just the rules. I'm sorry. Doesn't make sense. You can say, oh, a kid wants a candy bar. Yeah, I'm sure they do. Okay, I'm sure they do. And there are all sorts of things I'd like to be able to do that I can't do. It's just the way it is. And so it doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care about everybody that lives in your city more than you care about creating and sowing chaos, because this ends one way. It does. It's people on the streets. We've seen it. We've seen people, on Trank and fentanyl, and they're bent over, and
it's
you just
terrible.
see this stuff out of control. So you either fight it because you love them enough to change, or you watch them die because you don't care. And that to me is where we're at, because I think this decision, they can say, well, we care about them. Yeah, sure. If you care about them, you don't want them on the street dead.
Yeah. Or, really risking other people's lives that are driving, like our teenagers that drive the streets. And these guys jump out and they walk out in front of the car. Just think about that if that would happen to an inexperienced driver and what might happen and how that would impact their life and everybody else's life.
We have one of the highest rates of pedestrian accidents in the country.
I know.
For that exact reason.
Yeah. And it's like, it's manic.
Yeah.
And I don't know why we don't have a system that we can just enforce the laws, put the laws down, enforce the laws. That's why having a mayor who doesn't just throw back and say, I'm going to let it be up to the citizens to decide how they're going to handle this. It's not my job as the mayor, which we recorded and played on our last show. So if you missed that, go back and listen to those parts of the debate because they were rich. But anyway, I just think we need real change. Okay, speaking of we need some change.
Well, actually, let me jump in. Yeah. No. The change that you're talking about here is there's another ICE hotline, okay? And I want to get to that, and then we're going to get to the shutdown. Okay, because I misstacked the show. So now, Congressman in California has come out and said, wait a minute, we have an ICE hotline nationwide that you can call. Okay, so I want you to just listen to Robert Garcia. He's a Democrat from California. And the reason we're bringing this up is the violence issues that we're seeing against law enforcement in this country. And it's this type of decision from Garcia and his ilk that's going to lead to more violence.
I shared this with the mayor. Over the course of the next couple of weeks, the Oversight Committee will be launching on their website a master ICE tracker, where we're going to be essentially tracking every single instance that we can verify that the community will be able to send us information on.
So track ICE. Okay. So I decided to put a few numbers together. So this whole track ICE thing, let's call them out. Let's get this going. We know about the shooting in Dallas, killing 2 migrants because someone thought they were shooting into an ICE van and they were going to kill ICE officers. Instead, they killed 2 innocent people, right? Okay, so here's what's happened with attacks on ICE over the past year. In 2024, there were 10. Now we're seeing a 400, 500, 700-fold increase in what's happening, percent increase in what's happening with violence against ICE. And this sort of thing is why. And we cannot continue to sit here and watch this. And if you look at the overall numbers, if you combine them all, 1,000% increase on attacks on ICE officers. We cannot have leaders step up and say, basically offering a permission structure to attack law enforcement. I mean, this sort
I
of
swear
thing
this is
devastating.
this is the new defund the police to me. That's what this is. This is the new defund the police campaign. Like, we didn't learn enough for how painful that situation was, and we lost officers and saw crime in uptick. That's what this feels like to me. It's just, let's repeat what we just went through and just make things unsafe for our federal agents who are trying to just, I mean, honestly, and I go back to this, I said this a couple of episodes ago, actually a few episodes ago, really good friend that's an FBI agent. And he honestly doesn't, I'll be honest, I don't think he's some diehard Trump fan, quite frankly. But he said, listen, they gave us the number one directive as FBI officers are to get the most violent offenders that are here illegally off of our streets. And he said, they are some of the worst people you could imagine that you want nowhere near your families or loved ones or your businesses. And that's what we're trying to do, is to get these people out of the country because they don't belong here to start with. And so he said, if people actually knew the people we're going after, I don't think that they would be doing this as much as they are, fighting against it as much as they are.
And this is where the media problem is. This is where we get to a media who would much rather sow discord between ICE, between the Trump administration and the people of this country. They're just not honest brokers. And if they were and they really looked at these and started telling these stories, people would realize that. I understand there are some concerns out there, but this is craziness. This is just leading to more and more violence, and we're gonna get more shootings. It's gonna happen again. It's, by the way, every night in Portland, it keeps happening. You keep seeing tear gas, you keep seeing people battling back and forth. And again, this is chaos. And you're exactly right. It's a super interesting point from the FBI agent, because it's really, when we went down on the border and we stopped and talked to Border Patrol that were sitting right at the Juarez port of entry. And we said, what's going on here? He goes, you wouldn't believe the people we see coming through. You don't want anything to do with any of them. Trust. And so, this is where we are. Now we have leaders standing up saying, we're going to track these guys so you can go after them. Yeah, that's the permission structure. The permission structure is, here's where they are, go get them. And that is devastating. So, okay.
I can't even crawl in the mind of these, like this guy. What's he running for, Senate, or is he a senator?
No, he's a congressman from California.
Yeah. I can't even crawl inside his brain and say, why would you think this is a great idea?
Yeah.
Like, why in the world would you think this is a solution to fix whatever your problem is with immigration? Like, this isn't it.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's continuing to go on? We're setting records here. 22-day government shutdown is now the second longest in U.S. history.
Yes, it is indeed.
The ongoing government shutdown became the second longest in U.S. history Wednesday, surpassing the 1995-96 lapse in federal funding as it dragged into day 22 with no end in sight. Senate Democrats have blocked Republican attempts to reopen the government 11 times since October 1st, when all but 3 members of the caucus voted against moving forward with a House-passed measure to keep federal departments and agencies funded at current levels through November 21st. Now, this is kind of interesting. Jeffries wants to sit down with Trump. Well, this is what it says here. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries and I reached out to the president today. And this is from Senate. This is a quote coming from Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer. He says, House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries and I reached out to the president today and urged him to sit down and negotiate with us to resolve the health care crisis, address it, and end the Trump shutdown. I love that Schumer's calling this the Trump shutdown when it's the Schumer shutdown, in all honesty. I was like, wow, look at that, trying to rebrand it. He goes on to say, we urged him to meet with us, and we said we'll set up an appointment with him anytime, any place before he leaves.
Okay, so why is Donald Trump not jumping out in the middle of this? He gets in the middle of everything, right? He's in the Middle East. He's trying to solve that. He's trying to solve the Ukraine war. Trump, you can accuse him of a lot of things, but not being involved isn't one of them, right? So the question is, why is Trump not running to address this issue? And Harry Enton, who we have a lot of stuff from Harry Enton at the back half of this show right now, and the reason why is because Trump has no incentive to do that. Listen to this.
Take a look here. We speak about Donald Trump shutdowns, net approval rating. We're talking 20 days into it. In 2018/2019, Donald Trump's net approval rating was already falling. The shutdown was eating into his popular support. It was down 3 points already at this particular point and would fall considerably more. It was very much on the decline. You come over to this side of the screen, this shutdown hasn't eaten into Donald Trump's support at all. His net approval rating is actually up a point in terms of his popular support. So the bottom line is this. The first shutdown during Trump's first term, 2018-2019, was hurting Donald Trump. This one is not hurting him at all. There's no real reason Donald Trump might say, at least when it comes to popular support, I want to get out of this shutdown.
What about the question of blame?
Yeah, okay. What about the question of blame? Okay, you see here, you see Donald Trump's net approval rating was down 2018 to 2019. You talk about 2025 as net approval rating is up. It comes down to the blame game, a game I loved to play when I was younger. Blame Trump for the shutdown, a great deal. In 2018/2019, 61%, more than 3 in 5 Americans blame Trump a great deal for that particular shutdown. You come over to this side of the screen, look at this. It's a different world. It's a different world. 48% of Americans blame Trump a great deal for this particular shutdown. So it's more than 3 in 5 back in 2018/2019. It's less than half, a drop of 13 points. Again, it's no real wonder that Donald Trump at this point, looking at the shutdown, says, you know what, it's not actually harming me politically. And
okay. May not be harming him politically, but Trump does want to solve the shutdown. That's why they have the clean, what we call CR. That's why they're willing to spend money at Biden levels to get the government back. It's very, very clear. So you see some.
He just isn't interested in adding more money,
yeah,
which is what the Democrats are asking for, by the way. Which is, I think
it's a separate negotiation,
yeah,
right?
Yeah, it's a completely separate negotiation. So for them to say, "I'm going to hold the country hostage until you guys give us even more money that we can't afford to spend," it just seems weird. It's like, could you just get back to work and see if you guys can even negotiate on the original budget before you start asking for even more money?
Well, so that's what Scott Jennings talked about on CNN, as he says basically that the American people are being used as pawns.
The president said today he'd be happy to meet with the Democrats if they stop holding the government hostage. They could easily walk in there tonight, pass the CR, give us 7 weeks. The president brings everybody together. And my strong belief is that they would wind up negotiating on a number of issues, and they would come to an agreement. The president doesn't want to negotiate under duress. In the Hill today, a Democrat senator anonymously said, none of us want to vote to open the government because, quote, we'd face the guillotine. That's their words from our base.
Yeah, I think you just made a very...
Okay. So
they're worried about their reelection? Is that what
they're worried about their base. Right? They're worried about their base coming, to some degree re-election, but really their base going crazy, saying, you're not doing enough to stop Trump. And they view shutting down the government is doing that. Okay, so you've got people that are, right now not getting paychecks.
Right.
And one of the people constantly voting to keep the government shut down is Martin Heinrich, our senator here in New Mexico. And remember, just to be clear about this again, here are the dividing lines. What you have from Republicans is they have stepped up and said, listen, we will keep funding exactly where it's been. We're not going to touch it. We're going to move forward. Let's get 7 weeks in, and then we can renegotiate a permanent deal, basically. Okay? Democrats are saying, no, we're not doing that. Now they have done that countless times. 13 different times they've supported it and signed what you call a CR, a continuing resolution. That's the continuing funding. Now, remember, in the continuing resolution, this is Biden-level funding. You've got crazy funding priorities in here, by the way. They would drive you crazy. But Republicans are like, forget it. We just want to keep things moving and keep people getting paid. So you talk about the pressure that is on Democrats. We pulled this from Martin Heinrich, who was on CNN, now, what you're going to notice in Wolf Blitzer's question is it's an incredibly disingenuous question. Wolf Blitzer is incredibly biased when he asks this. What he should say is, there's a continuing resolution in front of the Senate that keeps funding levels exactly where they were. Why will you not support this? What is the problem with supporting continuing funding the government and then hash out the issues you have in the meantime? That's what the question should be. But he's going to listen to how he asked the question in the most biased way possible, in the softest landing possible for Martin Heinrich, and then you'll hear Heinrich's response.
Some Republican senators have pushed a bill that would pay government workers who have not been furloughed as part of the government shutdown. Those who have been furloughed would still be without pay. Is this something you would support?
I'm not going to pit some of my government employees against other government employees. I think that just gives the president more leverage to really make the situation worse and treat some government employees with incredible disdain. We've already seen a lot of government employees fired during the shutdown who didn't need to be fired. This is an administration that's very hostile to government employees. I have a lot of those folks in my state, and I'm not going to turn my back on any of them.
In fact, you have, though, because all those people, government workers in this state that are not collecting a paycheck, aren't collecting it because you won't let them. It's that simple. You could absolutely sign on to the CR. and they could get a paycheck. But you are putting politics and your own base ahead of people. It's that simple. It's that easy.
Maybe we should take away the paycheck from the Congress people.
Oh, of course not. You can't do that.
I mean, heaven forbid.
I know. No, I totally
so
agree.
they keep it closed. They're not doing anything except keeping it closed and getting paid.
Yes. They're
Dumb.
getting paid. Yeah,
Ridiculous.
absolutely. And so now you would say to yourself, okay, is there anybody that's doing this the right way? And I think there is. Our guy, John Fetterman.
He's not my guy.
Okay. All right. He's not your guy. He's not my guy either, but
He's only your guy in the fact that he wears a hoodie like you.
He wears a hoodie and he's an honest broker on this. So what has he said from the beginning? Sign the continuing resolution, give people a paycheck. Here is how you handle things when you put the country before politics.
Are you surprised that vote after vote, it's just been 3 Democrats time and again who voted for this bill? And does that surprise you?
Yeah, it's Groundhog Day, and I'm just saying, and it's not entertaining. It's like now real damage are now touching the lives of regular Americans, and we all lose, and it's embarrassing.
Yeah, I mean, and he's right. He's exactly right. It's exactly what you should be doing as someone who cares about the people of your state and of this country. Sign the deal and then get it going. But yet we continue to be in this spot because we have politicians who play politics before they're leaders. We don't have leaders anymore. That's probably, and I give Fetterman credit for being a leader because that's what he's doing. He's leading right now. Guys like Heinrich and Lujan and across the board here who would rather shut things down because they're afraid of their political base. It's just cowardly. Stand up and fund the government, and then we'll get things going and get things fixed going down the road and then reach an agreement from there.
Well, I think what's interesting is when you actually look back historically, what is Congress when they're actually in session? How are they doing? Are they passing those bills? Are they getting things across the line? Are they making the real change and the real difference? Not really. Not so much.
Scholar Billy Preston, nothing from nothing leaves nothing. What are we talking about here? Well, nothing's getting done in Congress, but the truth is, if you look back at Congresses at this point in a presidency, we were already dealing with a historically unpopular Congress anyway. At this point in presidency, we have only gotten this, get this, just 36 laws actually signed, 36 bills signed into law. That is the fewest at this point in any presidency dating back since 1953, way less than the median of 87. And so the bottom line is, nothing's getting done in Congress right now, but nothing was getting done in Congress right now. So what difference does it make anyway, I think, in the minds of a lot of the American people?
So, I mean, honestly, they're not getting a whole lot done right now when they're in session. So the big concern, I would say, honestly, is getting those paychecks, getting people paid. That's why you keep Congress open. But it's still also frustrating to watch how much they don't actually accomplish because of the division, right? They can't seem to come together on things and get things, across the aisle and signed and helping people out, right? We can't seem to figure this out. And so now you take a listen and you're wondering, this is kind of what you were leading to at the beginning of the show is, so what do presidents do when Congress is not willing to work around with them? I think it's this whole thing. We started talking about this a couple of weeks ago, or a couple of months ago during the beginning of the election, of how many executive orders get signed, not only by Trump, but by Biden and by Obama. So take a listen to this. This is kind of a little look back about this executive order situation.
Things differently during this shutdown.
Yes, exactly right. We talk about Donald Trump and you say, okay, he wants to be a consequential, influential president. Well, if the legislative process is basically freezed up, on Capitol Hill, you may say, well, then he can't actually get legislation through. But that's not how Trump is governing in this term. We've spoken about this over and over and over again. He's using his pen. He's using executive orders. Trump executive orders at this point of presidency. In 2017, it was just 50. Look at this. Already 210 executive orders signed by Donald Trump during this presidency. That is the most in a year. You have to go all the way back since Franklin Delano Roosevelt to find a president who signed more executive orders in a year than Donald Trump has already signed this time around. And remember, John Berman, we still have 2 months to go in this year, so it wouldn't be surprising to me if he signs even more.
Yeah, it seems to be saying, Congress, you don't want to do something?
About this whole thing. And that is that when you have a president of the party you support in the White House, you're like, let him sign away. Let him sign away. But you're not going to like it when a president of another party gets in and does this. And I also understand that the thought of Congress passing less laws, not necessarily a bad thing, right? We don't need Congress passing a million laws all the time. However, what's happened is Congress has just been removed. They've just been removed from the process. And the president comes in and does these things. And again, I think a lot of what Trump is doing, I think has been good in many cases. But the price of all of this is that the more you take Congress out of the mix, the more you elect people that once you elect that president, boy, for that 4 years, they just blast ahead. And I remember the comment from Obama that, hey, I have a telephone and a pen. I can do what I need to do. I'll do it without you. And that's what we've seen just get bigger and bigger and bigger. And that's what's happening right now.
Yeah, just this explosion of power, which, I mean, we were shocked at how many executive orders Biden did just on day one. I mean, I remember us covering that and talking about that, and that was really overwhelming. And so you're right. This is obviously not great representation of the people when we vote to put people in there to go to bat for us and go to bat for what we want them to talk about and to deal with. Having a president just sign away things and just say, okay, because then again, you got 4 years of that. And then if they're replaced, then what happens is those executive orders that you may have liked.
You roll every single one of them back.
Right. And so it's just like this ping pong game that you go back and forth and you're playing, and it's not a real assessment of taking care of the American public long term.
Yeah.
And so I just think this seems like it's not a great solution.
Yeah. Okay. One more check-in with Harry Enton on where are the numbers for what's going on with the election in 2026. And for people, I think even in this state, thinking about running, this is what gives people pause.
If you're Republican.
If you're Republican, thinking about running in this environment.
It's shocking to me, John, and it comes down to party identification. Do you identify as a Democrat or as a Republican? And traditionally speaking, this is a metric that has been quite telling of elections, and we'll get into that a little bit. Party ID margin, Dem versus Republicans. Specifically, I'm talking about Gallup. Back in Q1 of 2025, it was a tie. Look at how much Democrats have gained on this metric, according to Gallup. Their latest metric, Democrats are ahead by 7 points. That is a 7-point movement to the left. I looked at some other pollsters as well to see if there was similar movement. Among Quinnipiac, it was +1 Republican. And you can see, again, movement to the left, Democrats +3. You know, last year, going into the 2024 presidential election, that was the rare time in which Republicans actually held a lead in Gallup's party ID measure. That Republican lead is no more. Adios, amigos, eliminated. Now Democrats ahead by 7 points, at least according to Gallup.
And this is okay, so it's one poll, but it does show you, could there be some movement to the left? Maybe. I mean, we just don't totally know at this point. But if you're looking at running, this is why it's always tricky in a midterm with a party that is in power trying to hold on to the House. It's always tricky. And so that's why you look at those numbers and go, you know, should you be concerned? Yeah, if you're thinking about running, you're looking at this and things continue to slide just because they happen to do that usually. That's one of the things that really leads people to say, got to take a pause and figure out what to do. So if you're a Republican candidate thinking about running, you see those numbers and you kind of go, although the trend in New Mexico still looks better. It still looks like it is, the state is likely swinging a little further to the right, pretty, steadily here with voter registration.
Right. Voter registration is definitely up. We're definitely seeing an increase in those numbers. So
right. And you're seeing an increase too, that numbers are people are leaving the Democratic Party going into independents as well. Mm-hmm. So those are two of the numbers that are going up. Republicans are going up some, independents are going up more. And that's usually what happens. You see people kind of shift to the middle and go, wait a second, I need to reassess.
Right. Okay. Well, let's talk about, you wanted to pull this ad from this Texas senator.
Oh my gosh, this guy. Okay, this is James Tallarico. Okay, he is a member. I think he was in the state Senate in Texas. Okay, and everybody was very excited about him. And he decided to put out an ad. He went to the Texas State Fair. Okay, and he decided to put out an ad talking about prices at the Texas State Fair and why they are going up. And the hilarity ensues when you just start to figure out what he's talking about, okay? He's talking about tariffs. And then you listen to some of the products which he's very concerned with. The tariffs are hitting hard on these products. And you tell me what the problem with this ad is.
Everything, including one of the best things in Texas. I'm here at the Texas State Fair. Thousands of families come here every year for the food, the rides, the livestock show, and of course, big techs. Life shouldn't just be about scraping by with bills and groceries. The state fair is one of those things that makes life worth living. But this year feels different. Thanks to tariffs, everything costs more, a lot more. These deep-fried Oreos cost $14. They used to cost $6. This funnel cake chicken sandwich used to be $9, now it's $15. These fried alligator bites are $23. The Big Tex turkey leg is $25. Tariffs drive up the price of ingredients, so if small businesses like these vendors want to stay in business, they have to pass that cost along to us. I don't blame the state fair. I blame the DC politicians who are pushing tariffs and raising the cost of everything. So when you walk into the voting booth next November, remember this $25 turkey leg.
All right, listen, discount Beto O'Rourke. This guy's killing me, okay? Does he even know how tariffs work? So in other words, are we shipping in those turkey legs from China? Is that what's going on? You have the Chinese turkey leg?
Or the alligators, they must be coming from like, I don't know where. Someplace really crazy.
Oreos, unbelievable. You can't do it. With that, tariffs are killing Oreos. You've got to be kidding me. He either thinks his voters are complete morons or he has no idea what he's talking about. I mean, it's one thing if he's like, hey, look, see this phone? See this? See that? What comes? Look, I get it, okay? But
talk about like cars maybe, or I don't know, some other kind
something that you actually import
right, not
that
food.
You get a tariff from.
Right.
Not food from Texas, which by the way, the reason all that food went up is because of the inflation under Biden. Yeah. So that's what happened. So he goes and does this, and it's just so ham-fisted and ridiculous.
Well, I mean, we even hear people talking about how travel numbers are down because of the tariffs. And I'm like, travel numbers are probably down because because things are more expensive.
And we've said from the beginning, this is Trump's big challenge.
Yeah, he's got to fix it.
You've got to bring prices down. And if you look at gasoline prices, things like that are coming down. I ended up paying for premium less than $3 a gallon in Angel Fire last week.
Well, I swear Angel Fire is the best place to get gas right now. I've said
crazy.
that.
If you're in the area, go there.
Yeah, go fill it up in Angel Fire because it's cheaper than any place I filled up my car in a long time.
Even in Vegas, even in Las Vegas, it's cheaper. But so that's some of the stuff we understand. Like Trump has to address that. Interest rates have to come down. A lot of things have to.
But you have to stop blaming everything on the tariffs because it makes people sound dumb.
Well, it's stupid.
Like
right?
even I told you about, I was in the grocery store line and the lady in front of me is like, "Oh, things are so expensive now because of those Trump tariffs." And this was even before the Trump tariffs had even like gone into action.
Right.
And I was like, I don't think the products you're getting are actually coming from outside of our country.
It's
I
crazy.
see the 6 things you have on the counter; they're all from here.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's a tariff
They're like,
issue
well, it's a cascading effect. Give me a break.
Yeah,
okay, give me a break. All right. So anyway, just to nail this point home, that he's full of garbage. Okay. Yesterday on Good Morning America, the CEO of Walmart came on. And this, by the way, I don't know if they did an ad with GMA. This sounds like an ad, but it's actually an interview.
Could be like a sponsored thing, yeah.
It sure does. And Lil George was doing the interview, okay? He asked him a question, and then listen to what the CEO of Walmart says about food prices coming up for this Thanksgiving. And I'm pretty sure, let me carry the one, yes, turkey is a big part of that. So the turkey leg that this joker was holding up, right? That's a huge part of what he's talking about right here. Just listen to prices that are headed our way this Thanksgiving. I'm sure because of the tariffs, you're about to see a massive increase in all of these prices, okay? I'm sure that's what you're about to hear.
Yeah.
The Chinese turkeys on the way.
In.
I mean, here they come. They say Peking duck? No way, baby. This is Chinese turkeys, okay?
Good.
Here we go.
We started putting together this idea of having the entire basket easy to purchase, easy to assemble back in 2022. And this year, we will have the best prices on this basket we've had since the program started. We're down about 25% from last year, down about $14 for the basket.
Impossible.
Which puts us in a position where this basket is just under $4 a person when serving 10 people. So we have a great basket that has a mix of our great brands, like Butterball turkeys. Our turkey prices, George, are all the way back to what they were in 2019 at 97 cents a pound. So we're really excited about the progress. I was really impressed when the team brought me this. It was better than I expected. So we're looking forward to a great holiday season, and we want to help people celebrate any way they want and do it at a great Walmart price.
Okay, Beijing turkey is not going to be what's going to be on your table, it turns out.
Thank goodness
I mean,
for that.
just unbelievable.
Or the alligator that's coming in for, what's another high, like what's Germany? Do we have like tariffs with Germany
I'm
on
sure,
cars, right? It's like the car thing,
Yes.
right? Yeah. So the alligator legs also that are being sold at the state fair from Germany.
From Germany are just brutal. I mean, it's just brutal. This is
Blaming everything on the tariffs shows people that they don't understand how the tariffs actually work, and they are not understanding like the breakdown and how that actually does end up helping our economy in the long run. That food prices and inflation have something are very different than what the tariff situation is. So.
Oh, there's no doubt. I mean, I just think it's disingenuous. It's ridiculous. It's, but again, this is what happens when you have people who don't actually just tackle real issues in a real way.
No, Mark, the thing is they know that if they can confuse the issue, we've talked about this a lot of times, right? If you can muddy the waters, if you're in a campaign, you can muddy the water. Oh, people are seeing that price is very expensive for that turkey leg at the state fair, right? And I mean, our own kids went to our state fair and said, we couldn't afford to get any of the food. It was so expensive this time.
Right.
I mean, that's exactly what
It's
Ella
a
came
huge
home
issue.
and said, right? Her friends could not buy anything with their $25 at the state fair.
Yep.
So she said it was so crazy, it was so expensive. If you have somebody out there saying, this is because it's Trump's fault, or this is because it's X person's fault that's in Congress right now, it's their fault because they approved a tariff. People don't know tariffs, so they go, oh, well, everything's so expensive because of the tariffs. That's all that's happening.
No, and what we've seen is since everything increased in 2021, it has not come back down.
Right. That's what most business insiders talk about is it's very difficult when you put a price point on like milk or cheese or meat or whatever to see those to start to come down. Energy prices are different. You see those elevate up and down. Food is very difficult once they raise it and people still buy it. It's hard to get those companies to lower that pricing
Well, they
back
call
down.
inflation sticky.
Yeah.
Because it tends to stick around. So
it's tough. Okay.
yeah.
Well, thanks for joining us and spending a little time with us. Again, make sure you like, rate, review, subscribe on all the channels that you're listening to us. And if you want to sign up for our email, please go to nodoubtaboutitpodcast.com and you can sign up for our emails on that site. Thanks so much and have a great rest of your week. God bless.
You've been listening to the No Doubt About It podcast. We hope you've enjoyed the show. We know we had a blast. Make sure to like, rate, and review. We'll be back soon, but in the meantime, you can find us on Instagram and Facebook at No Doubt About It Podcast.
No doubt about it.
The No Doubt About It podcast is a Choose Adventure Media production. See you next time on No Doubt About It.
There is no doubt about it.